A patty left outdated for an entire month, still sitting on the aisle, as if nothing were wrong. It sounds like a fictional plot, but it happened here in the UK. You know what's more unsettling? The supermarket behind it wasn't obscure or distant. It was Tesco, the place many of us visit weekly, the brand we treat almost like a dependable neighbour, trustworthy on Monday, and quietly stabbing our confidence by Friday. But this isn't an isolated slip. Across the country, other major chains have put out mislabelled beef, allergen contaminated steaks, listeria risk slices, and even products that look British but come from supply chains with far looser standards. These are familiar names, the exact aisles you and I walked through yesterday, last week, last month, thinking everything was safe because the lighting was bright and the packaging looked clean. I made the same mistake. I don't want you doing the same. So in this video, I'm exposing 5 UK supermarkets that have sold or once sold beef that never should have reached your basket. And for your own safety, I'll show you exactly where I shop now and how to choose a proper patty every single time. 1. Tesco. Like I just said, you need to be far more cautious with Tesco after this case, because what they allowed to sit on their aisle wasn't a borderline product, wasn't a close to expiry bargain, wasn't even an honest mistake you could shrug at. It was a beef patty overdue by an entire month. Can you believe that? 1 month. In food safety, a month isn't a slip, it's a collapse. It's the kind of timeline where bacteria don't just appear, they thrive, multiply, settle in, and set up their own postal address. No excuse can soften that. No brand reputation can cushion it. And if you've never seen what a 1 month expired cooked patty turns into, allow me a moment of honesty. The colour starts fading, not dramatically, just enough to look tired. The texture slackens into something between clay and damp sponge. And the smell, that's the sinister part. There's no violent stench, no dramatic warning, just a dull, slightly sour note hiding behind the packaging like it hopes you won't notice. And many people wouldn't, because spoiled cooked beef doesn't announce itself. It ambushes. Now imagine a man, one of us really, working late, rushing home, hungry, exhausted. He picks up this patty without checking twice. Why would he? It's Tesco. It's familiar. It's supposed to be safe. He heats the pan, tosses the beef in, hears the sizzle, smells the seasoning. Life feels normal. Dinner feels sorted. But what's cooking in that pan isn't harmless. A month expired cooked meat product isn't just off. It becomes a habitat for bacteria like listeria, which doesn't care about your fridge temperature, doesn't change colour to warn you, and doesn't stop multiplying because someone at the supermarket forgot to double check a date. Listeria is patient. It slips past your senses, settles quietly, then strikes the people least able to fight it. Older adults, pregnant women, anyone with weakened immunity. What starts as mild flu can escalate into meningitis or sepsis. These are not rare fairy tales. They're documented outcomes, the severe kind, the hospitalised kind that you don't wish this on anyone kind. And this risk ended up on a Tesco shelf, ready for anyone to grab, ready for anyone to take home, ready for anyone to put on their family's plate. That's the part that should unsettle you, not the recall. Not the apology, the exposure. Tesco did react. They issued the recall, pulled stock, put up notices, followed the FSA procedures. Fine, that's the baseline. Any supermarket must do that. But let's be brutally honest, reacting after the fact isn't impressive. It's damage control, not protection. And a mistake of this size, it's not a near miss. It's a breach of the most basic responsibility a food retailer has, keeping dangerous products off the shelf in the first place. A tiny mistake is upsetting enough, but a 30-day mistake. That's not a misprint, that's a full breakdown in oversight. And when you think about how many people could have picked it up, commuters, busy parents, elderly shoppers who rely heavily on supermarket trust, the emotional punch gets heavier. Every one of them walked past that shelf believing Tesco had done its job. Every one of them could have taken home a patty that had no business being on sale. And that's why this one stings differently. Tesco isn't some fringe chain, it's woven into British daily life. You expect a store like that to protect you by default. When they fail, the betrayal feels personal. So here's the truth from my own shopping habits. Tesco is fine for many things, but their beef, that's my last resort now. If I can buy beef anywhere else, anywhere with tighter control, anywhere with fewer excuses, I will. And honestly, for your own peace of mind, I think you should consider doing the same. If a 1 month outdated patty can slip through a giant like Tesco, then the next danger won't necessarily look rotten either. And the next supermarket on our list proves exactly that the threat isn't always on the date. Sometimes it's hiding inside the beef. Aldi. Talking about beefsteak, what do you expect? We all have our own ideas of a good cut. Some want it thick, some want it lean, some want a bit of marbling. Fine. Personal taste. But I think we can all agree on one universal truth: no one wants dairy in their steak. What kind of beef steak has milk inside? It's like mixing dessert and main course into one confused slab. Sounds ridiculous, innit? Then welcome to Aldi, where you weren't served just one accidental milk beef, but several batches of it. Because in October 2025, the FSA had to issue an allergy alert for Aldi's Ashfield's 30-day matured thin-cut beef steaks after the packs were found to contain milk undeclared unexpected and entirely unacceptable. And yes, Aldi had to pull the product, apologise, refund, the whole routine. By that point, the damage was already sitting in people's kitchens. You may think I'm overreacting. Actually, no. If you're lactose intolerant, this isn't a bit of stomach trouble. This is hours of pain, violent cramping, nausea, dehydration, the kind that sends older folks straight to the GP. And if you're allergic to milk, then we're talking far darker scenarios: airway constriction, full body hives, blood pressure collapse, a rush to A&E that turns into a fight for oxygen. And remember, this wasn't ice cream or chocolate. It was beef, the one food where no one expects dairy to be hiding. But here's the real kicker. Even if you have no allergy, milk has absolutely no place in beef. It ruins the product on a fundamental level. A steak should hit the pan with a clean sizzle, pure beef, pure browning, pure aroma. Slip milk into that and suddenly the sear is off. The smell is muddled. There's a strange creamy undertone where it has no business being. Imagine making a proper stroganoff, expecting depth and richness, then tasting a faint dairy note you never asked for. Imagine cooking a simple sirloin thinking you're treating yourself and the flavour comes out confused, almost softer than it should. Milk doesn't belong in beef. Full stop. Not in the meat, not in the marinade, not anywhere, except maybe the fridge shelf underneath. And that brings us to Aldi's inspection process, or the gap where inspection should have been. Look, checking allergen labels on a steak is not advanced science, it's not a demanding task. It's the bare minimum for a supermarket. When dairy ends up inside a beef product without warning, it tells you something very clear. The oversight failed long before that product reached your basket. The factory didn't catch it. The packers didn't catch it. The line supervisor didn't catch it. And Aldi didn't catch it either. Mistakes happen, yes, but mistakes that can hospitalise someone, those deserve serious scrutiny. So here's my advice, and I'm saying this the way I'd say it to my own family. If you buy Aldi steaks, check the label, check it twice. If anything looks off, leave it. If you want to be safe, stick to cuts with no processing, no blending, no room for hidden additions. And when in doubt, pick a place that treats the ingredient list like a promise, not a suggestion. A steak should never be a gamble, and certainly not a dairy-flavoured one. 3 Morrisons. Remember the Tesco story? They sold outdated beef and opened the door for listeria to grow. This next one doesn't open a door, it crosses the line entirely, because the listeria wasn't a risk waiting to happen, it was already inside the beef from the start. And I'm not talking about some little discount shop at the edge of town. This is Morrisons. Our Morrisons. The place woven into British weekends, quick lunches, emergency dinners, a supermarket many of us trust almost like family. Hard to digest, isn't it? Morrisons isn't just a place to shop. It's where people look for ease, familiarity, and above all, safety. But then came the day when safety simply didn't show up. Back in 2017, Morrisons had to recall its ready-to-eat peppered beef slices after authorities found listeria monocytogenes in the product. Ready to eat meaning people weren't cooking it, weren't heating it, weren't killing anything inside. They were eating it straight from the pack. And listeria isn't a petty bacterium, the NHS puts it plainly. Listeria can cause severe illness, especially in older adults, pregnant women, and those with weakened immune systems. One food safety expert said it best: listeria hides in chilled foods where people least expect danger. And that's exactly what happened here. If you're telling yourself, well, that bad luck wouldn't fall on me, then let me share something that still unsettles me. I have a friend notoriously careful, famously wise. Her name is Marion. I have a friend careful, steady, thoughtful, to the bone. Let's call her Marion. She loves her husband. And her husband, he loves beef. She buys it for him the way some people buy flowers, a quiet act of care. Steak nights, Sunday sandwiches, those comforting little rituals every family builds over the years. And she always trusted Morrisons. She trusted their roast chicken, their bakery bread, their fruit. Nothing had ever gone wrong before, so she kept buying their beef without a second thought. Then one season her husband started fading around the edges. It began quietly tiredness that wouldn't go away, a headache he brushed aside. Then the fever crept in. His neck stiffened. He became confused, forgetting small things, mixing up words. She thought it was stress, maybe a cold, maybe age, catching up. But it got worse. One morning, she took him straight to the clinic. The doctor examined him, asked a few questions, looked sharply at the symptoms, and said the words that froze her in place, probably listeria. And in that moment, everything she trusted collapsed. She knew exactly where the risk had slipped in. She had placed absolute faith in a pack of beef slices from a place she never thought would fail her. I'm sharing this because if something like that could reach someone as observant and cautious as Marion, it can reach anyone. And yes, Morrisons recalled the product. They addressed the issue. They earned their recognition again. Fair enough. But we both know how supermarkets work. One mistake means 1,000 chances for it to land on the wrong doorstep. And once a system lets listeria through, once the idea that it can never happen again is a comfortable lie. Food production doesn't run on hope. It runs on control, and when control slips, it slips quietly. So be careful with their beef. You don't know what your body might have to fight off. And after seeing how far this problem can reach, I'd rather you stay 2 steps ahead than one diagnosis too late. Because the next supermarket, its problem isn't hidden in bacteria, it's hidden in the story they sell you about the meat itself. Doorduster. Let's talk about Asda, because this one deserves its name right at the start. If the Morrisons story unsettled you, Asda carries a different kind of sting, the kind that hides in plain sight, smiling at you from a perfectly clean shelf. Asda's problem wasn't invisible bacteria or some deep technical flaw. It was something much more embarrassing: food past its use by date, sitting on the shelf like it belonged there. The Houghton store was caught with 59 items that should have been thrown away. Not tucked in the back, not forgotten in storage. Out there on display, faced out, waiting for you or your family to pick up. You walk past those chillers every week. You shouldn't have to check whether the supermarket has done the most basic part of its job. And that's why this case hits a different nerve. Most of us trust supermarket shelves more than we trust our own memory. We assume someone behind the scenes is rotating stock checking dates, removing the bad and leaving the good. We assume that when Asda lights a chiller bright and lines up beef neatly, everything in that row is safe. You shouldn't have to choose between rushing home and staying alive. You shouldn't have to play detective for something as simple as ground beef. When chilled meat passes its use-by date, nothing dramatic happens to warn you. The colour stays steady. The texture looks fine. The smell barely shifts. It's quiet, and that's precisely why it's dangerous. Harmful bacteria don't ring an alarm. They settle in increase and wait for you to take the first bite. Older adults especially don't always sense the early symptoms. They just feel unwell. They think it's fatigue or age when it's really something that began on a supermarket shelf that should have been cleared hours ago. But here is the part that should concern you more than the incident itself. This wasn't Asda's first stumble. Other councils have fined them in previous years for similar shelf life issues. Once is a mistake, twice is worrying. More than that, and you're looking at a store culture that is far too casual with rules meant to protect the public. If a supermarket can't keep track of which meat is alive and which meat is legally dead, then we have a real problem. Think about the kind of shoppers who rely on Asda. I picture an older neighbour grabbing a pack of beef for Sunday lunch, trusting the date printed bold on the front. I picture a parent rushing after work, grabbing ingredients before the school run, and assuming everything on that shelf was checked by people who cared. That simple trust, the most ordinary trust in the world, is what Asda borrowed. And that is what they broke. And it didn't stop at dates. Asda has had its own little dance with British imagery too. Union Jacks decorating shelves stocked with produce that wasn't grown anywhere near British soil. Uruguay beef sitting under visuals that whisper local. It's subtle, it's clever, and it chips away at the bond between you and the store that claims to serve you honestly. Let me put it plainly, food doesn't have to be poisonous to be wrong. Sometimes the dishonesty is enough. When a company allows nearly 60 expired items to sit on shelves and then wraps other products in comfortable British imagery, the issue isn't a single bad day, it's a mindset. Someone saw those dates. Someone stocked them anyway. Someone let them stay. Here's how I protect myself and how I want you to protect yours. Don't rely on the front row. Reach to the back, fresher items are usually tucked there. Avoid yellow sticker meat unless you've checked the date twice. Pay attention to condensation inside the pack. Too much fog can mean temperature swings. And don't let decorative flags make decisions for you. Your body pays the real price for someone else's shortcuts. Because if Asda fooled your eyes, the next supermarket goes even further. It fools your sense of identity. The beef looks premium, the label sounds premium, but the story behind it isn't the story you think. 5 Sainsbury's. Sainsbury's is the kind of place people walk into with a quiet confidence. Not flashy, not chaotic, just better. Or at least that's the reputation. A bit more careful, a bit more curated, a bit more you get what you pay for. But here's the problem. Sometimes what you pay for is the story, not the steak. Take their Wagyu beef. The price alone makes you think you're stepping into higher territory. You picture traditions, heritage, a standard held tightly in the hands of experts. You assume the supermarket has done the heavy lifting for you, found the right farms, checked the right practices, guaranteed a kind of quality you can feel proud serving. But that illusion snaps fast when you turn the pack and see the truth. New Zealand, imported. Perfectly legal, perfectly edible, but not the premium British adjacent fantasy that the branding quietly nudges you toward. And that's where the disappointment sets in. Not because imported beef is dangerous. It isn't. But because the assumption you paid for was British rigour, British welfare, British traceability. Older shoppers care about that. Families care about that. This country has its own farming values for a reason, and people trust them. It's not the origin that stings. It's how softly they let you assume something else. And it's not just beef, which found loose vegetables at Sainsbury's with no visible origin labels at all. They found chicken described with warm, reassuring phrasing that conveniently avoided the simple, direct clarity shoppers expect. And you can feel the pattern, can't you? The brand is gentle, the aisles are calm, the packaging whispers comfort. Yet the truth, the bare, unpolished truth, is always a little harder to find than it should be. Let me paint you a scene. Imagine you're preparing a special dinner for someone you love. You want it to be right, so you reach for that smart orange label. The typography is elegant, the colouring feels premium, the price tells you this is the good stuff. You stand there believing the supermarket has already filtered out anything that doesn't belong in a better meal. Then you get home, look closer and see the origin stamped discreetly on the back. Not what you thought, not what you paid for, not the story the front of the pack suggested. That moment isn't shock, it's quiet disappointment, the kind you feel in your chest rather than your stomach. And here's a truth I need you to hear. You weren't paying for Wagyu, you were paying for a promise, and the promise wasn't British. Now, to be fair, Sainsbury's isn't unsafe. Their standards beat plenty of other chains on paper, but transparency. That's where things slip. They don't lie to your face. They just wrap the truth in layers of colour comfort and soft language until you stop asking the questions that matter. That's the danger, not contamination, not bacteria assumption. And assumptions cost money, assumptions cost trust, assumptions shape how you feed the people you care about. So, here's what I tell my own family. If origin matters to you, don't read the marketing, read the fine print. Look for the 3 words that never lie: born, reared, slaughtered. Don't let premium wording make decisions for you. Imported isn't inferior, but it's not British, and you should know which one you're paying for. And if you truly value clarity, go to a butcher who tells you exactly which farm your beef lived on rather than which country it vaguely came from. Because once you peel away the packaging, the labels, the colours, the curated calm, you realise something uncomfortable. Beef in the UK isn't just food, it's a maze. And most shoppers walk through it blind. 6 Marks and Spencer. After everything we've walked through, the expired shelves, the hidden milk, the buried listeria, the premium illusions, you deserve one place where the ground feels solid again. For me, that place has been Marks and Spencer. And I'm saying this not as some grand declaration, but as someone who has quietly tested every aisle, every cut, every pattern of behaviour from the big chains over the years. When the noise dies down, when the scandals rotate from one headline to another, M&S is the one that still feels safe. Here's what I mean. When you buy beef at M&S, the label doesn't dance around the truth. It doesn't drown you in slogans or soft little phrases. It tells you exactly what matters. 100% British, fully traceable, born, reared and slaughtered on British farms you can actually point to on a map. And in a world where supermarkets love imported shortcuts, that alone is a relief. No guessing, no hidden passports, no surprise flights from halfway across the world. Just British beef raised under British welfare rules, handled under British scrutiny. And I'll be honest, part of the reason I trust M&S isn't even the paperwork, it's the feeling. You walk into their meat aisle and it feels like a place someone respects. The packs sit neatly, the labels aren't slapped on with panic, the dates make sense. And the beef actually looks how good beef should look, rested, bright, balanced in colour, never anxious or dull. I don't know if you've noticed this, but with M&S beef, the fat marbling isn't shy. It's honest. When you cook it, it browns evenly. It smells like something that belongs in your kitchen. And when you taste clarity, not compromise. But it's more than flavour. It's the sense that M&S hasn't given up on British farmers the way some chains have quietly started doing. They still work with small holdings, still pay fairer prices, still treat the farming relationship like something worth respecting, not replacing. And that matters especially now, because every time another supermarket slips into imported deals, something in our food culture thins out a little. So let me give you the same advice I give my closest people. When you want to buy beef that won't make you hesitate, start with M&S. And even then, keep your habits sharp. Check for born, reared, slaughtered. Choose cuts that look hydrated but not wet. Avoid meats with crowded packaging or fogged up trays. Look for the deep, steady colour. That means the beef has been handled with care, not rushed through a chain trying to meet quotas. And most importantly, trust your instinct. If something feels off, leave it. If the label feels vague, skip it. If the cut looks tired, it probably is. Your body pays the price for mistakes long after the supermarket closes its doors. We've talked enough about supermarkets that broke trust. Let this be the part where your confidence comes back slowly, quietly, but firmly. Because yes, there are still places in the UK where beef is treated with honesty. And for me, that place has a simple name: Marks and Spencer. 7 Waitrose. Before we end the video, let's talk about Waitrose, not the supermarket everyone jumps straight to, but the one many of us quietly consider worth the walk when we want beef with a bit more honesty behind it. If Marks and Spencer feels like the solid, safe choice, Waitrose feels like the one you go to when you want to remind yourself what good British beef actually tastes like, not just what it promises. Here's the first thing you'll notice on their beef aisle: almost everything says British right up front. That isn't marketing fluff. Waitrose mostly stocks beef from British native breeds, chosen specifically for flavour and tenderness, and from farmers they genuinely know and trust. That's more than just a label, it's a supply chain relationship that's been built over years, not slapped on a pack to make it look good. Now, I'm going to be honest with you about price, because that's the bit that always comes up when Waitrose gets mentioned. Yes, their beef can be significantly more expensive than what you'd pay at Tesco or Asda. A couple of British sirloin steaks can run in the region of 8 to 14s a pack, and fillet steaks $13 or more. That's not cheap supermarket beef. That's beef that expects you to care about where it came from, not just how it's priced. And let's be real, that price difference isn't for marketing theatre. It shows up in how the meat behaves when you cook it. The mince, the diced braising cuts the steaks, and the short ribs. Almost every Waitrose beef product you scroll through online comes with a consistent 4.5-star rating or better from hundreds of shoppers. That's not a handful of reviews, that's a pattern. People keep coming back and saying things like very tender, good flavour and excellent quality. There's a reason for that. Their British native breed beef isn't the lowest cost on the shelf, but it's picked for consistent standards, flavour, texture and welfare. You can see it in the way customers talk about it online too. Loads of reviews for mince, even different fat percentages sit up around 4.5 stars with hundreds of reviewers chiming in. That's a sign that despite higher pricing, people are happy enough with the value they get back. I like that Waitrose doesn't feel like it's selling you a story. They sell you a product with an origin you can almost taste. I've cooked their rump steak for guests, and even the cheaper cuts have held up without that slushy fridge smell some budget meats get. The braising steak I picked up recently from British native breed was rich without being greasy tender, without being mushy. It's exactly what good beef should be. And look, I know not everyone lives 5 minutes from a Waitrose, I get it. They're not the ubiquitous corner store Tesco or Asda. But when you can get there, when you want beef for a Sunday lunch that actually lives up to the idea of British beef, this is the place most people who care turn to. There's one thing I want to be crystal clear about: Waitrose isn't perfect and beef. There isn't a budget default, but that's exactly the point. You're paying more because you're buying out of trust, not because you're being sold a shiny label with smoke and mirrors. The feedback from real shoppers, the consistent British origin across almost all cuts, and the fact that you're not left guessing where it came from, that's the kind of clarity a lot of bigger chains still struggle with. If you've had experiences where supermarket beef looked good on the label but disappointed on the plate, then trying Waitrose might be worth it. Not because it's fancy, not because it's expensive, but because in this market right now, it's one of the few places where the beef's origin quality and customer satisfaction line up in a way that actually feels honest. In an aisle full of boots-on-the-ground price wars and marketing storytelling, Waitrose keeps it simple good beef from British farms, farmers they know, and customers who keep saying they'd buy it again. And that, when it comes to picking a decent piece of beef in the UK today, is saying something. After walking through all these aisles together, the good, the bad, the hidden, the honest, I hope you leave this video feeling stronger, not scared. The goal was never to make you distrust every shelf, but to help you choose with clarity, confidence and calm. You deserve beef that respects your body, your money and your home. And now you know exactly where to step and where to step away. Stay thoughtful, Stay sharp and trust the instinct that got you this far. Your kitchen, your rules, and you're more prepared than most shoppers out there.